uh, so that you can see it there if you would like, or for others to see it who weren't able to pre-register for this. And I think we're about to that point where we can get started. And Johnny, if you would go ahead and drop your screen share. Thank you very much. And I'm going to quickly share some slides. I'm thrilled that Sara is joining us here today. Sara was so impressive in a presentation that she gave to the Kansas Travel Group a couple of Wednesdays ago, and had such focused, succinct insight to what travelers are looking for and how she has experienced them as both a blogger and a traveler throughout the Midwest, that I asked her if she'd make herself available to share some insights with you and to also answer questions. So we have the capability. I can take questions from you in two ways. One, you can raise your hand and I can call on you, or you can put questions in either the question and answer section of Zoom or on the chat in Zoom. And without further ado, Sara, if I could, let me get you set up, spotlight your video, and share your slide, and we're good to go.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here today. I'm home here in North Iowa, and we've got a nice summer day. I don't know how it is everywhere else, but I hope it is. You know, we're all learning to adjust. I think we are realizing that now is the time when we need to figure out how we're going to come out of this. You know, we were all thrown into something that we didn't see coming in March. I would say, honestly, most didn't see this coming. So the challenge that you all have and continue to have is how do you market to shine above your competition? So hopefully I can give you some tips here today that will help you navigate this space, and also share some things that I myself am witnessing as I am traveling. So let's go ahead to the next slide and let's get started here. So yeah, there's so many opportunities out there right now in social media, your story. So here's one thing I want to make sure that you have. Does your attraction, is your story the story of your attraction? When you set up Facebook, when you set up Twitter, when you set up Instagram, did you complete all of the things that you needed to? You know, as in your phone number, as in where you're located. How did you come to be? How did you come to fruition? Who was involved in, who are the people involved in the partnership when you kick things off the ground? Different events that you have. Your story is so important. And how are you sharing that story? You now have an audience in front of you that you probably didn't have the end of February or first part of March. Because number one, there's a lot of people that are hanging around on social media, because we can't go out and mingle with a lot of people. You know, our events have been canceled, where we obviously have hundreds of people, thousands of people, events, and we all know how important events are. And for those of you that have attractions, you probably have events, you probably have fundraising events, and you're trying to figure out how to navigate that. And if you don't have your story out there, it can be hard to get some of these other things to fall into place. So let's move forward and talk about social media. So social media is a place where you can share that story, but you need to make sure that story is housed on a website. And why do I say that? You own the content on your website. You do not own any of the content on social media. So I'm going to use Facebook as an example here, because here in the Midwest, we're Facebook territory. Prime reason being, in the Midwest, our demographic is older. That's how it is. That's a reality. So a lot of people are on Facebook, and a lot of people will tell you, I'm not going to be on Facebook and I want to leave Facebook. But the statistics show that people are saying that, but they're still hanging around. So don't discredit that because of that. Social media is how you can be showing people right now, how are you functioning? How are you open? And you may say, well, we're not open. We can't have our doors open. Well, I'm here to tell you, social media is the avenue where you can show people how to visit and explore your facility in a safe way. So in June, I visited the Fort Abraham Lincoln State Park historical home in Bismarck, North Dakota. And that tour consisted of a guide with a mask on. My husband and I wore masks. Masks were not required on the tour, and they were not at the time required in the state of North Dakota. Now they recommended masks, and my husband and I were on the tour with 3 other people. The 3 other people chose not to wear masks, and then before we left, they kind of said, oh, we forgot them in the car. But keep in mind, that was almost 6 weeks ago. 6 weeks ago, masks wasn't something that we were all talking about every day. So I think it's important just to get that messaging out there, because a lot of these places can be visited in smaller groups with a mask on and just being smart. So the excuse that I'm hearing is we just can't open because we can't have people in. You can have people in. Now, full disclosure, I'm not an epidemiologist or a doctor or anything like that. I'm going by what I know about COVID. Keep your distance from people. Where I'm traveling, I'm staying away from people. That's what I'm doing. And get that message out, but you can come to these places safely. But if people don't know how to do it and you're not showing them, they are probably not going to come. They're probably not going to come. And I want to give another example. And I just learned this morning from a fellow travel blogger. I am the co-owner of the Midwest Travel Network. So I work with a lot of destinations across the Midwest and travel bloggers and travel writers. Well, this travel blogger had reached out to a museum that was 15 to 20 minutes from her home. So, and she's been doing a lot of local articles during this time. And she got the answering machine that said they were closed. So she left them a message. And a lady called back and said, well, we're closed. And she said, well, I'd like to do a story on blah, 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 blah. And she said, well, we're closed. And she said, and I also have, some other places to put your content. Oh, well, what the lady failed to realize is that travel bloggers, not only did this person get a TV story out of this, she got an article in a magazine and an article on the blogger's blog. Because she said yes. Now, had the blogger somebody said, no, we're not open, and the blogger just hung up, these things would not have happened. So this museum opened for her specifically to come in to visit. And they were able to get a story out of it. And they commented they needed all the PR they could get right now. And I think that is a common thing right now. All of you need all of the positive PR that you can get. And travel bloggers are a great way to do that. And, ask your tourism office in your community, who have they partnered with? Who are the travel bloggers that have been here? That's a great resource because they share on social media. So the other thing is social media. You may say, well, our doors are closed, so I don't need to post anything on Facebook. I'm here to tell you, you need to be monitoring social media more so than ever before. Because that is where people are seeing things. So you need to be posting at least one thing a day on Facebook, something related to your story, to the displays, your attractions, all of those different things. So those are all important things. That's why you want to have them there. When you go to sleep on your social media, your customers, your potential visitors, they go to sleep and they forget about you. That's pretty simple. You need to be out there. So social media is a great way. But the other thing is bloggers come and they share on social media. So guess what? You have your content for social media. You can grab their things and you can share them on your social media. We bloggers love it when you share our social media posts. We love it when you share the stories that we write. We love it when you share the TV interviews that we land. We love that. It's a share thing. We're sharing for you and we love it when you share it for us. So let's move forward to the next slide. So be bold, go out on a limb, that is where the fruit is. Mark Twain said that. So are you doing anything to be bold right now? I don't know if you are, but I've got an idea for you. So you may say, well, Sarah, our museum's too small. We can't have people in here. Da, 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 da. I mean, every excuse in the book, believe me, I've heard them all. And if you're an excuse creator, you've said them all. So what about a drive-by museum experience? I don't know what that would look like, but maybe you have, let's just say Civil War experience. Can you bring that Civil War experience out in front of your facility? Can you partner with a local restaurant? Maybe you've got a meat and cheese shop. Maybe you have a restaurant that makes really good pie. Put a package together with some type of a meal. We're used to eating in our cars. We're getting really good at that. And you face it, drive-thrus and fast food restaurants have been around for quite a few years. We're used to that. But maybe a drive-through theatrical experience, and then incorporate the local businesses around into that. And maybe let's just say you have a local artisan who makes Christmas tree ornaments. Maybe you offer a Christmas tree ornament, a drive-by theatrical experience with a meal, and charge $30 a ticket. I don't know what, but there are ways to do these things. There is, and then you can practice your physical distancing. You know, maybe you have 10, like a drive-in theater out in front. You have 10 parking spots, and you have car number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. People can reserve those spots, and they have their theatrical experience, and you have a meal, and they get their little Christmas tree ornament, or maybe it's a book. Maybe it's the Kansas guidebook that Marcy Penner and Wendy Rowe have out. Maybe that's something that you put in there. So those are things. Be bold and do something that nobody else is doing. I'm not seeing anything like that. I'm not seeing that out there. So what can you do to be bold and stand out? I challenge you on that today. So let's go on to the next slide. You need forever cheerleaders. You need to be informative. You need to believe in your product or brand attractions, because people must trust you. So myself and Melody Pittman of Wherever I May Roam blog did a Kansas I-70 road trip last summer with the Kansas I-70 Association. And I went back last night and looked. I have had 6 people from your state that are residents there that are not tourism they don't work in tourism or anything. 6 people within the last month have asked me when I'm coming back to Kansas. Now, Melody and I are planning a road trip, but she can't come to Kansas because she's from Florida. So we can't come to Kansas now. We can't make that happen, but we will make that happen. But my message here is that we as travel bloggers come into your community, into your attractions, and we build friendships and develop relationships. And the fact that these people have reached out to myself and Melody and asked us when we're coming back to your state says a lot. So we are forever cheerleaders for you. So how do you create that? You have to create that through relationships. Now, you know how I talked about that drive-through theatrical outdoor experience or whatever. Now that forever cheerleader could be the person or business in town that's making that pie. When you have people that are forever your cheerleader, you get the right information out there, and people feel the excitement and they want to be a part of it. And are you informing people? So being informative right now, are you letting people know your hours, your mask requirements, how many people are allowed in at a time? Now, people want to come and experience these things, but they do not want to, most people don't want to go where you have a room, let's say it's 10 by 10, and you say, oh, we're offering 15 people. Well, that's too many people in a room. You know, we're offering tours right now with a limit of 5 people, so we can have practice of physical distancing. I can tell you right now, if you get that message out there that you are open and you are doing those things, you will have people coming through your doors, and you will have people paying to come to your attraction right now. So you don't have to be totally shut down right now. You don't have to. And if you don't think that you're going to be able to stay open, if you're in the mindset that, oh, we got to close our doors, I'm sorry to tell you that you probably will be closing your doors. Because if you don't think that you can do this, you probably won't. If you take it and run with it and know that you're going to be bold and find your cheerleaders and get out there, and you've got your branding right on, you're continuing to be positive, you're going to be fine. But if you're going to continually think, oh, we're closed for good, all of these things are not going to happen. They're not going to. So let's move on to the next slide. So what makes you, so video, if you're not using video, I challenge you to use video right now. So YouTube and Instagram stories. Instagram stories right now are a huge place to reach people. And I'll give you a couple little tips. So with YouTube, this is the other challenge. With YouTube, when you're taking video, you want to hold your phone in a horizontal position, because that way you fill up the whole video area on YouTube. So if you're going to use video for YouTube, make sure don't have it like this, because you're going to have a funny empty spaces on the side. But here's the kicker. If you're doing Instagram stories, you want to hold your phone like this. You want to hold it vertical. That will show up better on Instagram stories. So there's a little technical tip with video, I guess. And I don't consider myself to be an expert with video, but I'll tell you what, if you're not using video, you need to. Now for Facebook, if you want to do a video on Facebook, maybe do one once a week and maybe you have a volunteer at your museum. Maybe you want to meet the volunteers, meet Sally. She comes in on Mondays, and have 5 questions that you ask the volunteers. That way you'll have people coming to your page every Monday at, let's say, 10 a.m. Maybe you do a Facebook Live, or maybe you've recorded it and maybe you've scheduled it to post on Facebook. So Instagram stories, you can do it video on your phone and then post it later to it as well. But I'm telling you, video is very powerful. And even if you're not actually open right now, think of all the displays and stories that you have to share in your attraction through video. I know you have a lot of it. I know you have a lot of it. So don't think that you don't have anything. Because I think when we are around a lot of things, we tend to think that nobody cares, or it's just that, or whatever. Well, that thing that's just that is the thing that I'm telling you right now. There's probably dozens of people that are out there looking for that and want that experience. So let's go on to the next slide. So what makes you unique? Are you doing anything that makes you unique in your attraction? The one thing I suggested, was a drive-by theatrical experience type of thing, but you have to find something that sets you apart from the competition. I don't know what that is. Many of you may have seen the Western Heritage Museum in Oklahoma City. What they did after, COVID hit, they had their maintenance man shooting Facebook video. Brilliant. So, think of something that you can do that would be a little unique to what you have to offer, because everybody has something that somebody else wants. It's just a fact of the matter. But I'm also going to tell you, if you're not finding those things right now, it is going to be more difficult to stand apart from the pack when we come out of this time that we're in right now. Now, we all know COVID had a beginning and COVID has an ending. Where that ending is, none of us know right now. But if you are not taking this time to really focus on what sets you apart, and I'm talking get your marketing together, do these behind the scenes things now. Well, if you don't have people coming through the doors, get your marketing up there. There's no excuse for maybe a year down the road, you say, well, geez, we don't have time to do any of this. There's a lot of evergreen content that you can be producing right now, because those that have went to sleep during this time on their marketing are really going to be hurting. So pay attention to what makes you unique. So you can go on and there's how you can stay in touch with me. But I also wanted to touch on, you may be saying, well, Sara, how am I going to do these drive-through things in the snow? Because winter does arrive in the Midwest and we all wonder how we're going to deal with it. Well, Clear Lake, Iowa is a great example. They have a kite festival on the lake in the winter, the 3rd weekend of February of every year. It had to be canceled one year and because the lake decided not to stay frozen. But cross-country skis. Are there any cross-country skiing trails near your attraction? It's a business idea, because think of what happened with kayaking this summer. If you want to go find a kayak right now, can you find a kayak? It's really pretty hard. I think cross-country skis may be the next thing that people are really going to be looking for. There's an idea for business. Anybody wants to start a little business? Maybe your attraction, maybe you want to rent out cross-country skis. this winter, and here's the deal. Maybe you have a mile trail that you could have as a cross-country ski trail near your attraction. And maybe you have a Saturday or a Sunday afternoon, maybe it's a Sunday afternoon, and you have people dressed up in clothing from a certain time period that your attraction represents. Maybe you're at the agriculture museum. Maybe you're going to have different things that represent agriculture at different areas along the trail. Now, here's another thing with tractors. Just think of all the John Deere, Case IH, the history of the tractor. Chances are John Deere may even want to partner with you on this. Maybe you could do something with the history of the tractor in a cross-country trail. There are opportunities there, but you have to be willing to reach out to other people. If you're not asking other people to partner with you, number one, they don't know that you're looking for partners. Number two, they don't know that you've got an idea. You've got an idea. You need to talk to somebody about it and make it happen. But cross-country skiing, I think that's where some of it's going to be this fall and winter coming into that. And the other thing is, I wanted to say that there are bloggers that are traveling right now, and I myself am doing some more traveling in a couple weeks, and going to be heading. I'm in North Iowa, going to be heading east and then heading west. And my trip out west is actually going to be geared towards stock photo content for myself. Because one thing I can do right now is drive, and I can ride in the car, and I can see a lot of beautiful places. And I've been traveling around my home state in North Dakota, and I'm going to get to Kansas here this summer before summer's over. I am going to get there, and I can travel there safely and back and forth, because that's the other thing. We need to be cautious of where we're going when we travel. Make sure to check out the state's websites before we visit. So just know that your attraction does have people that want to come and visit, but you have to show them how to do it. So I'm grateful to be here today. I'd love a question or two. You guys have a question for me? I'd love it if you do.
So, Sara, it is great to have you with us, and thank you for those tips. For those of you in the audience, just remind you there are 2 or 3 different ways you can ask a question. You can raise your hand, and I can call on you and open your mic. You can also post a question in the Q&A section, or you can put it in the chat. We're monitoring those as well. And I'd like to start with one question, Sara. How do partners who are not in an area that has a CVB, how do they engage or find outlets with bloggers like yourself?
You can reach out to me and the Midwest Travel Network. The Midwest Travel Network, I am the co-owner of the Midwest Travel Network. We have a network of 1,100 CVBs, DMOs, writers, and bloggers that have a passion about the Midwest. Reality is not everybody wants to come to the Midwest and write about the Midwest, which I don't know why, but that's a reality. And because obviously my heart is in the Midwest, but I would encourage people to reach out to me, and we have people, I can connect you with the people that can help you tell your story. The number one thing when working with a blogger, I will say this, when I ask a destination or an attraction, sometimes I will say, have you ever partnered with a blogger? And they quite often will say, we tried that. And the truth of the matter is they did try that, but they did not vet the right person to come and visit. An example would be, let's just say you have let's use a museum on airplanes. You have an airplane museum, and you invite someone who focuses on cooking. That's not going to be a good fit. And those are the types of things that happen. They'll say, well, somebody reached out to me and I didn't look, I didn't do my homework. And if you need some help with that, that's what the Midwest Travel Network does. We are a resource for that. We are a resource for that. And Lisa and I, Lisa's my business partner, we really want people to make the connections that can help them best tell their story. And that's what we pride ourselves on in the Midwest Travel Network. Because there are a lot of destinations out there that don't have a CVB right down the street. That's in the Midwest. That is a common thing. That is common. That's a great question.
Diana Starsenik-Dean is the executive director of the Franklin County Historical Society. She's raised her hand. I've unmuted her mic. And Diana, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yes, thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate what you've already shared today, and I'm already starting to brainstorm, so I'm super excited. My question is about the fact that we are still, every day is a new day. We don't know
Right.
what day we may have to close the museum again. We don't, and one of the issues we're dealing with now is a staff member who has potentially come into contact with COVID, which could shut down our museum for a few days. Do you have any thoughts on how to both be honest with travelers about that, as well as, what do you really need to tell people? We have, ever since we've opened, we've just let people know we want you by appointment, but be prepared. We just don't know day to day what's going to happen, and we'll be in touch with you if there's an issue. But we're just everything is so tenuous right now.
Right. So there's a couple things that come to mind. So I went horseback riding in North Dakota about 6 weeks ago. And one of the things they wanted on there was a phone number for if an emergency happened, which was not my phone number. And then they wanted the number for me. And I said, what do you need mine for? Because if something happens, I'm obviously hurt. And they said, well, we need that. So if we find out later there's a potential COVID exposure. So I didn't think twice about it. I gave him my phone number. Now that may be met with resistance, with the right visitor that comes through. I think this is something that we are going to have to figure out to navigate. In my hometown yesterday, we had an incident where a restaurant did not disclose that they had an employee with COVID. But guess where it showed up that they had an employee with COVID? It showed up on social media. And the restaurant, as of today, has not publicly acknowledged it. So it is very important that you as an attraction acknowledge it on social media before you get dragged through the mud. You need to be honest and forward with people. And if you're getting the message out there that you're obviously have appointments to come to tour, we require a mask, or we require, this distancing, you need to follow the X's on the floors. Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. I've been there 2 times during this pandemic here, and they have X's everywhere in elevators and where you stand everywhere to keep people apart. People are beginning to accept it, that this is how we're going to have to live. But I can't stress to you enough that you need to be honest and up forward with everyone as soon as that positive case is, or potential exposure. We've actually had one restaurant here in North Iowa that flat out closed their doors. They're a seasonal restaurant. They closed not because they had a case of COVID or an exposure, but because they were challenged with keeping people separated. And, those of us in the tourism industry we're just saying, why won't people just do this? Why won't they be separated so we can stay up and running? So that is a challenge. But I have to tell you, just be honest and upfront, and don't be afraid to put it out there, because you will be respected and people will remember you when COVID comes to an end, that you took those extra steps to notify the public of what was happening in your attraction. Does that help?
It does. We are already taking the phone numbers, and we give everyone a card that says what day they visited. So if they have an issue, they have a way to contact us.
Right.
So those were things we're already doing. This is just the first time we've actually, the first time we're dealing with a staff member who has potentially been exposed. And so that's where we're at right now.
So you haven't, did you announce that there was a potential exposure?
We have not been, we're only open 2 days a week.
Oh, okay.
So we haven't been open since we found this out. So that's, and I haven't had a chance to talk with my board too much about this yet. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah. And I know most of you just need to be honest with people. Just tell them that we've had a potential exposure.
Okay.
Well, I mean, you know that, but you don't know that it's a positive.
Correct.
And obviously if it's a positive, you just have to tell people. And I think people are, like I said, they're expecting it and they're respecting it. These businesses that are not paying attention to it, they are getting dragged through the mud on social media.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You don't want to be in that position. No. You just don't.
No, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Diana.
Hey, Jim, can I interrupt you for a moment? As a museum who's lived through this, here, let me turn on my video.
Go ahead, Steve.
We were open for a little bit more than a week when we had a staff member. This is the Watkins Museum in Lawrence, when we had a staff member test positive. And by the time she actually found her results, it had been almost 2 weeks already since she had even last been in the museum. But we thought, we had better follow the strictest procedures out of an abundance of caution. So we closed the museum for 2 more weeks. We all went back to working in isolation and made a public announcement that this is what we're going to do. Well, of course, that was picked up by the newspaper. Mm-hmm. Not all of the efforts we've been doing to engage the public, but the one time we have to close down. But overall, the public response to being honest, straightforward, and attempting to do the right thing, I think overall was a good decision for us. It got positive response rather than negative response. So while it feels, it hurts to kind of, put yourself out there that way, it does seem like that at least in our experience, was the best approach to take.
Yeah. And honestly, I personally think people are safer in a museum right now than they are in a bar.
Yes.
Very, very true. Very
That's
true.
The good thing that all of you have going right now. You do. Statistics, and I think your patrons will practice the physical distancing and do what they need to do to get the best experience.
Sara, let me ask you an additional question. Some of our communities are blessed that they have a number of locations that tell a larger theme story. Mm-hmm. As a blogger who travels, or a travel blogger, do you respond with more interest to an individual outreach from a single source, or someone speaking and suggesting for a cluster of a variety of museums who all work together to tell that story?
So what I'm going to do, it's going to be, how far do I have to travel to get there? What's my time? If it's one attraction or museum that really fits my audience, and I know that story would do fantastic, and there's other outlets I could pitch it to, I'm going to come. But chances are, if I can do 3 or 4 things that are tied in, even with that same story, collaborations. If you think that you can survive this time of COVID doing all of this on your own, I'm here to burst your bubble and tell you that it's going to be very difficult. When you collaborate, and that's no different than a blogger, if I can collaborate, my reach is that much greater, and it's a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for everybody. And that goes back to when I talked about the drive-through experience with the restaurant, the artisan, those types of things. Those partnerships are what are going to keep you afloat.
Excellent, Sara. Thank you. We have one participant who's joined us by phone, and they don't have the ability to raise their hand. So I have unmuted them if they want to ask a question, and also ask if anyone else has a question they would like to ask, if you could raise your hand.
Are you talking to me, Jim?
I thought that was your number, Paul. Paul,
Yeah.
I do have you unmuted, and wanted to give you an opportunity to ask a question if you're interested.
Well, I do have an interesting story that anyone who has mannequins could do, which created interest, a definite interest for us. We had 2 visitors walk in from New York. They walked in and they wanted to know why we didn't have our mannequins masked. We said, well, we hadn't thought about it. And so when they left, we masked our mannequins. We called 27 News in Topeka. They came down and did a story. And the thing that made it interesting is that, of course, it was from New York. 2 of the mannequins masked were President Eisenhower's parents, who were married here. The other one was Jim Lane, who was a very vocal pre-Civil War advocate. And it was run in the Valley Falls newspaper. It It was on Freedom's Frontier Monday Minute a week ago, and Kansas Travel and Tourism picked it up, and Kelly Hilliard put it on something that Kansas Travel News, their Newsweek, for at the end of the week. It was an accidental publicity event that we did not expect. I guess one of the things I would ask is, do tour operators want a schedule when they visit a community prepared so that they can follow that schedule when making arrangements?
I think that can go both ways. Myself, I don't mind a schedule, but I can tell you, and Paul, you are Mr. Kansas. I met you last year. I like having a little bit of a schedule, but I also like having a little bit of time in there to get to know people that I wouldn't meet otherwise. That's myself. I think a traditional tour operator that's going to just say somebody's going to bring 10 or 15 people. I think they want to know who that contact is, and they want to know where they're going to be at 10 o'clock and where they're going to be at noon and what time they're going to be ready to depart. Part of the reason being their driver. But for myself, I like to have, be here at 9, and then we'd like to have you here at lunch at 1. And then I have time to kind of find my own things and do what I find. And a lot of times it's funny, we as travel bloggers find things in communities that sometimes tourism directors don't even know exist. And that to me is always kind of fun.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And clearly, Sara, Paul's experience was like a casebook example of what you were saying about doing something unusual and being bold, and how it can gain you some additional traction.
Yeah, look at all the media attention he got from that. But he also made some effort to contact some people.
Paul has everyone's phone number, so that isn't a surprise. Isn't a surprise. We really appreciate, Sara, you joining us here today to talk with us about some of this outreach effort, and so thankful that there are people like you who are so engaged in travel and want to talk about it in these settings along the way. So thank you very much for being with us here today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. Now, if I may now, I'm going to ask Steve to unmute, to start his video and unmute and talk a little bit and share with you about what he has ongoing with our various traveling display efforts. So, Steve, if you could go right ahead. I've got you spotlighted now.
Sure.
Thank you again, Sara.
Yep, you're welcome.
The traveling exhibit program is slowly getting bigger. You all probably remember the traveling exhibit that explores the women's suffrage to celebrate that centennial. That exhibit has opened and closed at its first venue and is about to move on to its second venue at the Atkins Johnson Farm in Gladstone. The request or the response to the exhibit has been really good, although it's a little challenging because these are opening in museums that are opened in restricted ways. But so far, so good. And we've had great response to it in terms of the tour, and that exhibit is booked through the end of 2021, but is available for bookings in 2022. All you have to do is let me know. And then we are on the verge of completing the second exhibit that will become available for touring. And this one is called Fighting for Equality, People with Different Abilities. And it explores the challenges that people with disabilities face in the context of the overall national civil rights movement. With us just passing an anniversary, what was it, the 26th,
of the signing of the ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. This is a topical thing to explore. The exhibit really looks at the different ways over the past roughly 150 years that Americans with disabilities have come to create greater connection with the society that they're a part of. The exhibit is 5 panels. An introduction, one panel addresses the early struggles and the early systems that were established to provide help or to, in some ways, marginalize that part of our population. Focuses very much on the 19th century and looks at efforts that took place in Missouri and Kansas. The next panel explores the emergence of the civil rights movement and how Americans with disabilities started to make their voices heard on college campuses. And it traces how that played out in Kansas and Missouri as well. The fourth panel looks at the independent living movement, which was really a precursor towards the ADA. It was ways that this population made their needs known and made their desires of becoming a part of general society better known and moved forward to make those kinds of things rather than kind of going with an approach that was about institutionalizing and separating them from the population. And then the final panel looks at the passage of the ADA and efforts that are still continuing to assure greater equality for that part of the American public. The exhibit, the design is completed. The last few tweaks are taking place right now. It should go into production very soon and should be available for circulation starting in September. So if anyone has an interest in that, my email is snowak at watkinsmuseum.org. You can just give me send me an email and we can look at your calendar and we can start that one circulating. Jim, that's it for me.
Excellent. Any questions for Steve? If you raise your hand, I'll unmute your mic, but not seeing any. Steve, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to quickly shift here to Johnny and he is in a bit of a dark space with us right now, but I am thrilled that Johnny's work on the new Freedom's Frontier app has come to fruition, and the app is launched, and we will be holding a partner meeting to share the launch version of the app with you and how you can support it in the next week. So Johnny, is there anything you'd like to add?
No, I hope everybody's as excited about it as we are. As I mentioned in the Monday Minute, there are new features that we'll begin implementing over the next coming months and years. It's a long-term project, but for right now, the base version of the app is hopefully complete. If you see anything that you need me to correct, any mistakes or anything regarding your site, just please email me or app@freedomsfrontier.org and I'll take care of it. But yeah, it's exciting.
Well, we're excited about getting the app launched and using it as a tool to make it easier for travelers, whether they live just down the block from you or throughout this region or from anywhere, to travel and experience your sites at Freedom's Frontier. If there are no other questions, do appreciate your time here on this Tuesday morning. Thank you again, Sara, for making your time available to us and your great insights. And we thank you for participating with us in this partner meeting. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.